Welcome to the Breakthrough Success Podcast, helping you achieve that breakthrough you've always been looking for in your business. And now your host, Mark Guberti.
Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Mark Guberti, and this is the podcast for marketers and small business owners who are looking for the breakthrough for their businesses. I'm very excited about this show. We are going to discuss how to sell over 2 million books with our guest, Adam Houge. Adam has self-published 100 books so far with a focus on religion, such as his bestseller, The 7 Most Powerful Prayers That Will Change Your Life Forever. So 100 books, hundreds of them at this point. I don't even know how many at this point. That's quite a lot of books. So I'm sure that we all want to hear how he wrote all of these books and managed to get 2 million sales. So without any further ado, it is my pleasure to welcome Adam to the show.
Hi, thank you, Mark, for having me here today.
My pleasure, Adam. I really like stories like yours because when most people think about selling millions of books, they think about coming to a publisher and getting them to help out with distribution, but you did it as a self-published author. And I ask everyone who comes on my show, why do you pursue this particular course of action? So I ask you, what got you started as a self-published author?
Well, it's kind of a long story, but I guess I can shorten it up. I had gone through a medical crisis back in 2011 where a stress-related illness caused me some heart problems that forced me into an early retirement. And previous to that, I'd been kind of poking at a book that I was writing for years. So now that I was forced to be a stay-at-home dad with little to do, I decided to put my extra time to good use, and I went ahead and I finished writing that book. I didn't really think about getting it published or not. It wasn't really a decision for me. I heard of the success people had on Kindle direct publishing, so I figured, I'd just give it a shot and see if it'd work. And if it did, that's great. I could touch some lives with my book because I was putting together a religious book and I just wanted to touch some lives with it. And that was really my main goal. I wasn't trying to sell a bunch of books or I wasn't even looking forward to a certain level of success. It kind of just crept up on me over time, really.
So at the beginning, you didn't really think about succeeding. You were more focused on, I want to get this book out there so more people can see it.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. And ironically, that's how book sales work. When you write something like I'm writing, I'm just trying to touch lives. In order to do that, I need to put it in front of more eyes. When you want to sell any product, whether a book or anything, you have to put it in front of more eyes. The more people that see it, the more sales you're going to get.
So once you start accumulating these sales and you start to see that it's a business, you're making revenue, what prompted you to continue writing books? So what specifically attracted you towards that as opposed to looking at these other options for making revenue? I know that you do have multiple streams now, but what at that moment of time made you focus on writing the books?
Well, in the beginning, it really wasn't about the revenue for me. Even as I started to make more money, I just saw that door of, hey, I've got a lot of people who are being impacted by this. And for me, it was about impact. For somebody else who's trying to do it for money, they're seeing the number of sales that they're getting. And if you succeed at something, it is important to continue to focus on that versus getting distracted from it and looking through other avenues. First, exhaust your options with that. Grow it out until you can scale it up, then move out and branch out. And that's exactly what I had done.
So it's pretty obvious based on the first few minutes that you were more motivated by creating an impact than making a revenue. So when you first got started on this journey, what were you thinking? Because I know some people think about the revenue they have to make, but you were more focused on impact. So I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on that.
You mean what I was thinking of in terms of the money?
Just how you started out the journey, when you hit the publish button for your book, what are you thinking at that exact moment?
I was wondering if anyone even liked what I had written. You get this nervous feeling where you wonder, okay, I've spent all this time on this project. I spent all this time writing it, putting it together. Then you're hitting publish and your fingers a little nervous. You're wondering, is anyone even going to like it? Is anyone going to be touched by it? Or if you're trying to sell it, is it actually going to sell? And so for myself, I guess I had a little bit of nervousness when I started out, but I pushed that publish anyway. And I had hoped and anticipated the possibility of scaling up growth. So when you scale up a business, it's no different. It doesn't matter ultimately whether you're doing a how-to for another aspect of life. If you're trying to touch lives through that, you have to follow the same business practices that it takes to create sales in order to get it in front of more eyes, and they're not going to be touched unless they buy the book. So I was focusing on it from a completely different perspective, but that same perspective is what entrepreneurs should be focusing on in the first place in order to create sales for themselves. So for me, my mindset was not, how many dollars am I going to make this week? It was, how many people can I touch this week? And when you focus on that, you're going to naturally put your book in the right places for it to get sold at a higher rate.
So you mentioned creating the book on a focus of making the impact, but some people may be wondering, okay, I write this book. I know I really want to share this message and get all these sales, but then their books don't get much sales because they don't have the right marketing behind them. For instance, what is your advice for someone who they have the book idea, they've written it, they want to create the impact, so how do they get customers? Is it like Amazon will promote the book for you if it's like on that right topic, or are there other factors that come into play?
Well, there's a lot of factors. I guess there's 8 laws to Amazon's algorithm that you have to look at. First of all, there's the algorithm itself where your book gains visibility. Like I was saying, in any entrepreneurial journey that you're going on, you need to get your product as visible as possible. On Amazon, the 2 factors that control their algorithm the most are going to be your keywords and your categories. You have to focus on keywords such as higher traffic or medium traffic ones that have lower competition so that you can get closer to the first page. And you have to focus on categories that have more traffic to it, but that are not overly difficult for you to get onto. For every category there's a bestseller list. And you want to land on that bestseller list to gain more visibility. There's different parts of the algorithm, such as the popularity list. That's on the front page of Amazon. When you just go log right into Amazon, start browsing for books without using the search bar. You just click on books, start looking. You're in the popularity list. When you click on bestsellers, now you're in the bestseller lists. When you click on the search bar, you're in the search engine, and the search engine is controlled by keywords. So almost everything is controlled by those 2 factors, and I focused on what would get it in front of their eyes. But then there's a second thing that people need to focus on, and it doesn't matter whether you write fiction or nonfiction. It doesn't make a difference whether you're trying to put a message out there or you're trying to share a story. It's the same concept for everything. You want to be able to get in front of more eyes, but then focus on factors that create conversions at a higher rate. So I guess those first 2 keys to the 8 laws of Amazon's algorithm, if you'd like to call it that, is the keywords and categories. But then the other 6 would be the conversion factors of your book and sales page. And that would begin with your cover. You need to have a fantastic cover design that speaks to your target market. So if you're writing fiction, for example, and you have a romance book that you're putting out, if you have guns and knives on there, probably it doesn't matter how good it looks. It's probably not going to sell as well as something that's more practical for the genre. And same with a thriller. Some kind of, if you're writing a scary book and you have a couple in a romantic pose, it doesn't matter how nice the cover looks. It needs to speak true to your genre. After that would be the title. The title somehow needs to grab their attention. So with my book, for example, the 7 most powerful prayers that will change your life forever, someone would stop and scratch their head and think, well, how can prayer change your life in the first place? And then they might be thinking, what would these 7 most powerful? It intrigues their interest. So that works for a nonfiction book. For a fiction book, you still want something that might grab their interest. For example, if it's about somebody's journey from being broken, you could say broken, but then let's say it's a romance, broken but saved by the cowboy, something like that. You'll notice that some of those tend to do better than if it's just named Clancy. So if you focus on things where it grabs their attention, they can see the cover on the front page, and it matches the bestsellers. Before you even publish your book, go look at the bestseller list of your genre, scan through the first 20 on the bestseller list, 1 through 20, and imagine your book sitting among them. Does your cover look like theirs? If not, you need to get your cover fixed. One thing I'll do is I might have my cover designer alter the color just a little bit so that it stands out from among the other bestsellers, because you have about roughly 1 second for someone to see your book and decide whether they're going to click on the cover image or not. So make the best use of that second by making the cover speak true to your genre, look as good as possible, maybe have a slightly different color coordination to it so that it grabs their eye instantly. And then if you have a title that grabs them, they'll look at the cover, they'll read the title, they'll click the image, and that's what they have done. After that, they look at the description, which is the third conversion factor. You want a description that absolutely hooks them. You don't just want to describe what your book is about, or if you're writing a fiction book, you don't want to just describe it. You want to create a story around it, or pull a piece of the story out, create a new story, something that grabs them, that hooks them. It doesn't have to necessarily end with a question, but it needs to be something that drives a burning interest in them so that they have to buy your book to satisfy the curiosity that you've driven into them. Then from there, you have the sample. People will look inside the book and they'll read from there. You want to make your first 5 or 10 pages as engaging as possible so that when they read it, they'll know that this is something they want to buy. And after that, you have your pricing. You want to make sure that during a promotional period, the algorithm balances across sales across a 30-day algorithm. So in order to rank higher on that algorithm, you need to have more sales up front. And in order to do that, it's better to do small 99-cent promotions. You burst your sales up, and that allows you to hit higher on the algorithm, at which time you would raise your price according to what your genre can handle. So most people who are indie authors in your genre, don't look at the published authors, they don't count for this. But if you look at the indie authors, if they're selling their books on the bestseller list at $3.99, then your price point is safe at raising at $3.99 as a new author. As you grow and create a bigger email list and fan base, and people are more familiar with you, you would be safe putting it up to $5.99, even though everybody else is lower, because you have an established brand. And after that, the last conversion factor would be reviews. If you have poor editing, you're going to get a lot of 1 stars. So what you want to do is, first of all, have it well edited, and secondly, tap into your fan base and your email list, asking them to leave reviews for you. And these will create legitimate 4 and 5 stars for you.
Wow, thank you for the mini course on that. I mean, that was a lot of insights in just a few minutes. So, I mean, I'm definitely going to rewatch this to write the notes down, because I never really write notes during the episodes. And so you've written over 100 books at this point, optimizing them for all these smallest things. And I know that throughout a journey like yours, there are a lot of high points, but also a lot of low points. So I'm just curious, what was the low point in your journey?
Well, I guess I'd like to say I had 2 low points. The first low point is when I first began. I was going through a medical crisis. I was buried in medical bills, and I wasn't even sure if I'd be able to afford continuing to do this. I had to start by making my covers with Fiverr, and even then I didn't know if I could afford it. But as things began to trend upward and pan out for me, I did see a future in it. And by September, I had reached what I thought was an all-time high. But when I realized how to connect on the algorithm better, like I just explained, and to connect with my audience on it, I was able to shoot my sales up to $14,000. And then by December of that same year of 2013, I was doing roughly $40,000 a month in business for my books. But what ended up happening is everybody experiences something that's called a 30-day drop-off, where you write your book, and after about 30 days, your sales slump dramatically. And as a result, I had to continue writing book after book after book after book just to keep my sales up. And at first, it didn't it didn't matter as much to me because I was trying to put that message out there. But after a while, I got so exhausted by the process of continually sitting down in front of my computer, writing the next one, just to keep the amount of visibility there, just to keep touching the same amount of lives, just to keep the income up. And it became a pattern of trading time writing for the money I was earning. And that's when I began realizing there has to be something else here that would help me stick onto the algorithm so I can write less and still experience impact and, keep the sales coming. And when I had realized that, I began to tweak my backlist. But my low point was I went from $40,000 and I kept seeing those 30-day slumps. I did a big publicity tour, so I hadn't written in a while. And suddenly my paycheck fell all the way down to like $6,000 one month. And,
wow.
And I felt like, am I going to be able to continue to do this? It was a complete drop off. But I pushed through it. I reminded myself why I was doing it in the first place. And it wasn't about the money. For me, it was about the impact. So I continued to just drive into that. And as I wrote more books, I saw more success and it came back to me. And then I began connecting better with the algorithm and saw my sales rise with less books written. And for example, this year, I've only written about 3 actual books throughout the year. Most of my books were written last year and published in January. So,
well, that is such a great story of having that big dip down, but being able to rise through it. And the way that you explained it, it sounds like you were starting to get a little more focused on the revenue, but then the moment you reconnected with yourself and figured out why you got started, that's when the light bulb switch turned on and you were able to continue making the same revenue and even write this a much lower number of books and get the same, if not greater, level of impact.
Right. And it's the same thing for anyone else who's going through that situation. Sometimes you lose focus on what you're supposed to be doing. So in your business, you might be focusing on, hey, I'm making this much money. If I do this, I'll make this. If I keep doing that, I'll make that. And then there'll be some change. Perhaps you're making a blog and there'll be a change on the Google algorithm or whatever it is. And suddenly your sales drop. And you have to go back and remember, what were you doing it for in the first place? It wasn't the dollar signs. It was the eyes. Put your product in front of eyes and continue to look for ways to get it in front of more eyes for either free or a cheaper, ad spend. And that's what's going to help you scale it back up again.
So earlier in this interview, we talked about your strategies with the email list. And a lot of people who I come across say that their email list is their most valuable asset. Is this the same case with you?
I'd like to say so. With authors or anybody who's making a product on Amazon, your number one goal needs to be getting ranked on the algorithm. After that would come your email list, because your email list is what helps you get onto it in the first place, because you need that burst of sales, and then Amazon will give you ranking from there. So your email list is your valuable asset, but the question is why? And for me, my why is continuing to get those eyes on the algorithm. But from there, now you asked me how I get book sales with the email list, right?
Yes.
I want to make sure I'm keeping this answer on track here. Well, first of all, it's multiple ways. When I publish a book for the first time, I put it out there, and then I'll hit up my email list when I have a promotion. If it's an old title during a promotion, I would connect with my email list as well. But there's also another way that you can do it, and that's through your Autoresponder. So in order to get email signups, I have a free library of books. So 3 books that I give away for free, and they'll sign on for that. And sometimes I'll turn on another part of my Autoresponder where after the 3rd book, the 4th email they will get will point them to another one of my books. And this allows me to create a trickle of sales to drive my book on the algorithm without having to actually do a promotion of my book.
So usually when I hear autoresponder and getting sales, it's usually for a high-priced training course. Do you see a strong payoff with doing an autoresponder for 99-cent books and getting, I think it's 35 cents in return? Do you see some big return on that?
Not unless you can drive your book higher onto the algorithm, because when it comes to higher price things, you're not on an algorithm. You use your email list, you sell the thing, and you make money. And it works great that way. But when you're on an algorithm, what you're doing is you're price pumping. You're driving your book up, and then you can take that off of your autoresponder, and your book continues to sit on the algorithm and make sales all by itself without you. And you can drive it up to 100 sales a day, then take it off the autoresponder, and it will continue to sit, 100 sales, slowly come down 80 sales a day, come down 50 sales a day. And in such a case, you're making, $20, $30 a day just from that one book. And at the same time that you're making that, you can turn around and do that with a second book. And so you can stagger your book's incomes like this, creating multiple streams of higher income. So rather than just seeing it as 35 cents, you might see it as $20 a day for this book, 30 for that one, 10 for that one. And just because you turned on an extra feature on your autoresponder, you're now making $60 per day more than you were before.
That's a new way of looking at self-publishing that I never explored that deeply before. And it sounds like email marketing is such a critical part of ranking high on Amazon. But is there a way that you get sales beyond email marketing? Like, are you using social media to promote your books or anything of that nature?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Facebook ads. Amazon Marketing Services just opened up their entire service to all books, whether you're on Select or not. And you can drive sales through them for just a nickel per click. And I've almost on all my ads, I have a tremendous positive net revenue with that. And Facebook ads, it's a little trickier of an animal. I found that box sets work better on Facebook than anything else. But again, you can use Facebook to grow your email list and then have an autoresponder sequence where you can also bring your sales up. And then you'll have the algorithm helping you make more money on those books, helping you pay for the ads that you've created.
The Amazon ads interest me because I know what you're talking about. I've seen that in play as well, but I'm just wondering for the ads where you're paying 5 cents per click and they're giving you a good ROI. Are these for the 99-cent books or the $2.99 books?
Both. It's for both. I get a positive return with 99 cents. I can't really pull it up right now, but I know that on one of my ads, I've spent like only $80, 5 cents here, 5 cents there, but then I've made over $400 for a 99-cent book. So, I mean, you do the math, that's a little over 300% return on investment for a 35-cent royalty. I mean, it's just incredible how it works. In fact, because it's targeted to Amazon and people who are shopping on Amazon right now, it is, in my opinion, the number one most targeted ad that you can create because you can target it to their keywords. I don't do display ads. I'm talking about the sponsor ads that you focus on with keywords. Display ads don't work too well for me, but with the keywords, paying just the few cents here and the few cents there, you can focus on keywords that are highly related to your book. So when people type it into the search engine, they're already looking to buy something on Amazon exactly that's related to your book right now. And there's no hotter form of traffic that you can possibly find than that.
That's a very interesting point you bring up because I've heard other authors also have difficulty with using Facebook ads to drive sales, and it makes sense because people go on Facebook primarily to socialize. They're not going on Facebook to buy the next product. On Amazon, people have their wallets out ready to spend some money on stuff.
Yeah, and you have to distract them with your ad and take their attention away from what they're doing on Facebook. And usually you need a really good carrot, and that's why free book offers work better there than trying to do paid ads up front.
So you've promoted a lot of different books through a lot of different methods, and I'm sure you've seen a lot of authors promote their books as well. What do you think is the one thing that most authors get wrong when they're promoting their books?
Well, it's one of the two things. The first thing is they're not focusing on, so I actually see two things that they do wrong. They're not focusing on the conversion factors of their book. They'll take all this time to write their book, then they won't create a really good description for it. The description is what sells the book, so you want to sell somebody on it. Or they might create a poorly designed cover. They've spent all this time and effort on making their book. They need to give themselves and their book what it deserves, a good cover and a good description. And another issue is that they don't focus on what keywords they need best. They'll just type in a few. I've seen people, I've helped and mentored other authors, even New York Times bestselling authors. And one common trend I've seen, even with New York Times bestsellers, is their keywords are not always as accurate as they need to be. For example, when they write a romance book, they might type the word love for a keyword. And when people go on to Amazon, they don't type in love and hope to find a romance book. They'll type in clean, sweet and clean romance or something like that. They'll type in a phrase of whatever they're looking for. And those phrases are highly targeted. And those highly targeted phrases need to lead back to your book. And that's one of the issues I see. And another issue is that they're not actually promoting it right on the day of their launch. They'll put it out there, they might mention it to the email list, and then they'll walk away. When there's other book blogs and other things that'll allow you to create some heavy noise for your book so that you can spike it higher on the algorithm and get it to stay ultimately at a higher sales rank to make more sales over time. And so your sales over time is what's going to make all the difference in the world. I mean, I've sold 2 million books, but when you really look at it across the 100 that I've written, that comes to 20,000 per book over the past 3 years. So it's really like 7,000 books per book per year. That begins to sound a lot more manageable to other people because it's only just, it's just small amounts per day when you begin dividing that number out. I don't know the math on the top of my head, but like 20 books a day. And that suddenly becomes a lot easier to achieve. So when you focus on the things that will create the longer tail of sales, that's what's going to create the longer term income for you.
So earlier you mentioned about choosing the right keywords and the difference between saying love or doing a more detailed keyword to get more sales. What is your advice on finding the right keywords so that people search for the right keyword and your book pops up in the right place?
Oh, there's multiple ways to go about doing that. The first is sometimes I'll spend all day. Literally, I'll sit down in front of my computer, have an 8 or a 10-hour day researching keywords. Not writing, no Facebook, nothing else. I'm working on Amazon to learn my keywords because they matter that much. And the first thing you need to ask yourself, you've written the book, so you should know and understand who your target customer is, who your target reader is. And you want to know what they think, what they feel, who they are as a person. And when you understand this and can define your customer more clearly, then you can understand why they would come to Amazon and search for your book. And when you understand that, then you might understand what they would type into the search bar. So you'd have to ask yourself, if I was in their shoes, what would I type in? What would they type into the search bar to find my book? And you begin to realize that it has more to do with the genre of your book or the subgenre of it than it does the book title itself. So when you focus on these aspects, it makes it easier to begin the journey, but that's not where it ends. You start there, and then you want to test the traffic of it. When you type in a phrase, you'll notice Amazon will also give you suggestions. Write all those suggestions down. Try those suggestions on Amazon, and they'll give you more suggestions. Write all those down. Now you have a large list of keywords to test. And there's a couple ways to test them. The first is you can actually go to the search page, type in the phrase, hit enter, look at the number of results and how many free books are on the top page. If there's few free books on the first page and there's few results, then it's a low competition keyword. And then look at the sales ranks of the top 20 books. If the sales ranks are all 20,000 and better or 50,000 or better, that suggests that there is traffic to that keyword, because it wouldn't be ironic for those same books to all have sales. A multitude of the books on there should have sales. So if 10 of the 20 seem to have decent sales ranks, then that probably has traffic to it. But if 2 of the books have a good sales rank, like 1,000, and the rest of them are all terrible, probably it doesn't have traffic. Now, that's kind of a subjective method. The second method is the most objective method that you can choose, and that's to actually go do an Amazon sponsored ad, take all the keywords you find, and put them on there for your book. And, just bid for a nickel per keyword and wait about a week and then come back and look at your ads. Whichever keywords have the most impressions, Amazon just leaked their secret to you and told you how much traffic that keyword has. Go back and see if that keyword is high competition. And if it's not, you found a fantastic winner for your book. Go and put those ones into your book. Then try to have a good promotion. Maybe try to get one of those keywords in your title if possible, just cleverly woven in, no keyword stuffing, just something in there cleverly. You'll rank higher for those keywords and you'll end up seeing more sales as a result.
So you've just gone so far into detail about how to analyze keywords, how to increase your sales on Amazon. But even at this stage, I know there's a question a lot of people have. And I know that you only wrote 3 books this year because you wanted to tone down on the number of books you have to write. But how exactly did you find the time to write 100 books? I mean, I feel like you would have to pause time and then just start writing.
That's exactly what I had to do. Sometimes I'd work 6 or 7 days a week, sitting behind my computer, 8, 10-hour days. I remember one week, it was terrible. I had worked 16 hours, 7 days in a row. And I mean, that's the level of writing I was doing. But I enjoyed what I was writing. I enjoyed what I was doing. And it was something that, that I loved. So it was easier for me to do that. But that was, that one week, that was a terrible week. But most weeks would be like 8-hour days, 5, 6 days a week, sometimes 7. And when you spend that much time writing, and when you know when it comes to a nonfiction book, when you know what you're talking about, it's easy to write faster. So I would write 5,000 words a day, good, solid, usable words in a day. And that's how I was able to write so quickly. When I write fiction, I write a lot slower. It's a lot more difficult for me to craft the words in there because it needs to have more of a poetic feel to it than just stating facts in a nonfiction book. So that one, it's 1,000 or 2,000 words a day. I'm lucky to get 2,000, but and that's usable words. I can plot details and other things and have a huge 5,000 word day, but none of it's going to be usable for a book itself. And when I sit down and write the real data, that takes longer. So if I were writing fiction books, I'd probably have something closer to the effect of 50 novels out there. But even then, people with that many novels in the fiction realm, there's a little bit less competition in fiction than there is for religious books. There's extremely high competition in religion. And I'm writing to a specific niche in it. I'm not just writing to every, Christian or religious person there is out there. I'm speaking to a specific niche, which means that I have an even smaller target audience. So the fact that I'm able to do that following these strategies on Amazon says that anybody can do it. I mean, if I can do it, I went from being broke and medical bills, choosing a high competition, slightly lower traffic genre. I mean, the genre itself is high traffic, but I chose a subgenre among them that was more difficult to hit. And so if I'm able to do it doing this, anybody can do the same thing.
So it's pretty obvious that you've been on quite the journey and you have learned a lot of lessons along the way. So I'm just curious, what is the best lesson you have learned on your journey?
Don't let anybody control your future, and don't trust other people with the things that you're doing. If you're writing books and putting them on Amazon, don't trust Amazon to stay the same. They'll change their algorithm, it'll affect you. If you're making a blog, don't expect Google to always be the same. Be adaptable. Be ready to change, and in that readiness to change, be ready to add more product, to think of things you've never thought of before. So for me, I'm taking my entire book writing. I went from being an author to being a publisher, because now I have so many books. And now I'm going from being a publisher to being more of a business. And this is helping me to achieve a greater outreach for what I do. And if you are any kind of business, whether you do an outreach or you have a fiction thing, this will create greater revenue for you. And that's kind of the same entrepreneurial journey that most authors go on. They'll find themselves being authors, becoming publishers as they write more, and then ultimately becoming business people. And that's what's most important, is to focus on what lies ahead for yourself.
So there are some people listening to this episode and they have different goals. Some of them want to achieve the same level of success that you have in books. For other people, they have a focus on the training courses. They have a focus of growing a large audience. They want to hit their breakthrough. So what advice do you have for these individuals who are trying to reach their breakthrough?
Well, if you haven't reached your breakthrough yet, it's probably because of the way you're looking at things and thinking of them. I guess it's incredible. For example, I'm going to just stray for 1 second, but look at a diet. When you're trying to lose weight and you step on a scale and you just can't do it, and you don't know why. It's just very simple. It's because of one letter in a sentence. I can't do it. Take the T out. Take that T out. I can do it. If you can't believe that, then ask yourself, how can I do it? And not doubtingly, like, oh, how could I do that? Ask yourself, how can I? And that opens your mind up to search for new methods. So, for example, if you're trying to sell courses, I also sell courses. In the past couple months, I've sold over $200,000 of courses. So how did I do it? I asked myself, how can I? And I understand that the same thing for selling courses works for books, and you need to get your course in front of more eyes. Ask yourself, how can I get my course in front of more eyes? And then you will begin to open your mind up to more possibilities. How can I get more partners or more affiliates? How can I do this? And you begin looking into those things. So what I guess I would like to challenge everybody here to do who's looking for the breakthrough is to open their mind up to a greater possibility. It is possible for anybody sitting here today to go from where they're at now to making $1 million of revenue by the end of the year. All they have to do is ask themselves, how can I? And then answer that question. And when you've answered that, you will do it. It's that simple.
So you tapped into a lot of motivation there that I can, and I'm sure that the idea of going from zero to millionaire in 1 year, that's got to attract a lot of people. And you're absolutely right. If you really think that you can, and it's a real belief, not just like I can, just because he said that. If I say I can, it's going to happen. So in that similar sentiment, what is one awesome inspirational quote you can think of right now?
Keep Moving Forward by Walt Disney. Just don't worry about what you've left behind you. Don't worry about past experiences and what you've gone through already, because your past does not equate to your future if you don't let it. If you just take charge of your heart and your mind right now, and you look at your situation, wherever you might be at, and you can just take a moment to really believe that anything is possible, suddenly everything becomes possible. So with that said, just keep moving forward to that next goal and keep looking forward to it. Create more goals for yourself and keep moving, and you will find yourself achieving dreams that you never even thought were possible.
Adam, you've shared a lot of great insights and especially a lot of strong motivation at the end. And it wouldn't be fair for you to come on this podcast but not have the opportunity to let people know where they can find you. So I'm going to give you the floor right now and let people know where they can find you on the web.
Well, I'm found on a few places. I connect with authors at I have a free little training course that I give to authors at thefanbaseformula.com. And I also connect with my audience as a Christian writer at my website, adamhouge.org. Those are the two best places to find me.
Adam, thank you for taking the time to be a guest on my podcast. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you, Mark, for having me.
I thoroughly enjoyed that interview. Adam focused more on his why, which was creating more impact, than adding more depth to his wallet. And by focusing on his why, the money simply followed. He also invested hours of his time into keyword research for his Kindle books because, as he said it, That's how important it is. He provided new depth into how we can generate more sales from our Kindle books and any product in general. If you forgot to take notes, then don't worry. We've got you covered with the show notes. Visit markgilberti.com/E21 for those. You can ask your questions over there, which I'll be more than happy to answer.
To never miss an episode, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on whatever player you are using. If you are a regular listener and haven't done so already, I would greatly appreciate it if you could give this podcast a review or a rating. Two ways you could do this are through markgilberti.com/iTunes or markgilberti.com/Stitcher. That ends this episode. Don't forget, dream big, achieve greatness, and unlock your potential today. How does over 100 retweets per day sound to you? My free ebook, 27 Ways to Get More Retweets on Twitter, has you covered. I use the methods within this ebook to get over 10,000 retweets every single quarter. To learn more and get access to this free resource, visit markgilberti.com/retweet. This podcast is a production done by Mark Gilberti. For more insights, head on over to markgilberti.com.